Good morning and good evening. My name is Alfred Boll, and I represent the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. The goal of today's interactive web chat is to provide you with information about current topics related to American higher education. We want to help you, our viewers from around the world, come to the United States to study. Today, we are covering how international students can finance their studies in the United States. Later in the program, we'll be joined by two experts from educational and nonprofit backgrounds. They'll tell you how to prepare to make college more affordable. If you have questions you would like to ask our experts and to have them answered during our program, simply join the Education USA chat room at educationusa.state.gov/interactive. Click on Guest at the bottom of the chat room box to join. You can also post your questions on Twitter using the hashtag EducationUSA. I also want to welcome a viewing group joining us from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thank you so much for participating today. We will be coming back to you throughout the program for your questions. I know there are other viewing groups gathered at U.S. embassies, American spaces, and other places as well. Please send in your pictures to Twitter using the hashtag EducationUSA, and we will show them during the program. I would now like to introduce you to Luiz Fernando. He is an international student from Brazil doing his Ph.D. at Catholic University here in Washington, D.C. Luiz, what is the focus of your Ph.D. And why did you choose to study in the United States?
Hi, good morning. My focus in PhD is physics and astronomy, basically. And I decided to come to US because I lived here for 1 year before. And I left many network contacts here, and I know that US could provide me all the resource I need to keep my research going.
Thank you very much. You also studied at St. John's University in New York before coming to Washington. What were some of the challenges you faced as an international student when it came to paying for your university studies?
Yeah, at that time I received a scholarship from the Brazilian government. But even though I have to pay for my residency, for my food and health insurance, so all this came together, and it was kind of different. It's really different from Brazilian culture, but you start to manage your money and you see everything has its value. So I think it's worth it. Yeah.
Well, what were some of the costs that you had that you didn't anticipate? I mean, can you talk about, so students have to create budgets for themselves, right? How did you go? Were you used to that? Is it something you'd ever done at home? Are there tactics you used when you got here?
Yeah, I used to do that at home, but not for paying my studies. In Brazil, it's free, the universities. So after a while, you start making some strategies to save money from here and there to keep your studies going well. There were many things that I didn't see coming up, but many was like health issues, so I have to pay here or there. But if you plan ahead, everything can be okay.
So can you give students some specific examples of your budget, of how things worked for you? You mentioned medical care. So do you have medical insurance?
Yeah, I have medical insurance, and the tip I can give you: don't spend all your money buying electronics and things that you don't need every day, right? So every time you receive a payment or any money, just save a part of it. So when emergency comes, like health insurance, or maybe you need to go to your country for some reason, and then you have that money on your account, and you don't need to keep asking for other persons or any other reason.
Did you keep money in Brazil and then bring it over when you needed it, or did you move your money to the United States and open a bank account here? How did you handle the day-to-day and planning for, say, a year ahead?
Yeah, in a first approach, I sold many things I used to have in Brazil, so I can pay for the flight ticket and the first expenses I had here. but I started from zero here. And the money I had in Brazil, I almost left everything there, so I didn't move. But it's been a year I'm living here again, so I'm taking the money from Brazil now and putting my account in the US. So, but for investment and create a bigger budget for me here.
Okay.
So it's just how to manage the money.
Right. What were some resources you used or found helpful during the process? You told me earlier that Education USA was helpful in providing information when you were a prospective undergraduate, when you were thinking about coming to the United States.
Yeah. For the first time I came to the US, Education USA helped me with the documentation, to translate all the documents, show me all good universities that could fit my my needs, and they were really helpful. And in the second time that I came, Education USA was there for me to help to build my application for the universities here. I want to come back, and they have to, again, translating the documents, show me where I could find scholarships and all this kind of stuff.
So, and what kind of, in relation to finances, how did Education USA help, or what did you do specifically to look at and to imagine, okay, how am I going to pay for these studies?
Yeah, well, I was approved at Catholic University, and after that, Education USA and Catholic University as well told me to look for some scholarships, and I started looking for teaching assistant scholarships, assistantships, and things like this. And I earned a teaching assistant scholarship at Catholic University for 8 months. So I was teaching and receiving budget for that. And this helped me, and this is what you need to do. You keep looking. You have to keep looking everywhere. Education USA helped me to what I need to do, where I need to look at, and some good sources of these scholarships. And many times, even the own university give you the money for teaching or become a research assistant or something like that.
So it sounds to me like it was an ongoing process, that it's never really finished. I mean, in the sense that you got a teaching assistantship, but you then also have to look for the next year, and you have to make sure that continues. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. After these 8 months end, I earned research assistant scholarship. So now I'm working at NASA with my advisor. So every year you have to keep looking and finding opportunities to keep your studying going. It's hard to find some scholarship that will fulfill for 4 years of PhD, 5 years. Usually it's year a year. You need to find money here or there, or find some opportunities, work at the universities. So it's an ongoing process. It's not just it ends here and you are safe for 5 years.
And you're safe, right? So I guess 2 questions come to mind. Before you came, when you were planning, did you understand that was going to be the process? So did you think, okay, I can only accept and come to college or university in the United States based on the fact that I'm calculating I'll have this scholarship, I'll have these private funds, I'll be able to work part-time? Is that how you thought about it? Each little part of financing your studies?
Yeah. When I was accepted and when I earned a scholarship, it was clear for me this was the way things would go. So I knew I had to work, and the scholarship I had, it was just for 8 months. But the Catholic University helped me a lot, and the professors there told me, "Oh, we're gonna find anything for you. After that, don't worry. We need to keep looking for now, but." Don't worry. And after you become a student, doors start opening for you. You start meeting other people. You start meeting new institutions, and so you can usually find other kind of scholarships that is not available at the beginning. So, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's can you tell us a little bit more? So professors were there to help you. Did the school itself, schools, they have lots of resources to help students with financial aid. Did you make use of the school's resources in that sense?
Yeah, yeah. The physics chairman helped me a lot to find my research assistantship. So after in the first week I was at Catholic University, I started talking with some professors, finding some opportunity to start doing some research and receiving for it. And the whole department was helping me with that. So it's just a matter, if you want, you can start looking, and you're gonna find someone that wants to help you. If you just need to really want something and go, there is nothing that can stop you.
And so, is there a special department? So, of course, you may not know this. You're in physics.
Yeah.
What about students who are studying very different things? Do you have friends who are, in a completely different field? Is it different for them?
Yeah. Each department and each school of the university works has its own systems. So I can talk by my girlfriend now. She was accepted at Catholic University to do her master in business, and we are looking for scholarships for her right now. And you have many kind of scholarships. Each school works in a different way, so you always have to go to your department, talk with the chairman, with the professors, and see all the research they have for you, what they can offer. And usually universities let you work part-time at the university, so you can pay part of your fee and tuitions working and receive some wage. So it's different from each university. For each school, each department, they have their own resources.
But when students are applying, will universities give them this information, about what the possibilities are, what the issues are as they're applying? Is this something that students can ask schools about?
Usually you have to contact the schools to get all this information detailed, but if you go to the websites and search, these universities they put it really clear on their website, these things. But the better thing you can do is just send emails to the chairman, to the deans, so they know how the university works. They know the reality for that moment, so they can tell you if it's a good option to do this or not, or if they have good resources to hire more teaching assistants, to hire some part-time jobs for the students. So it's the first approach. Go to the website. You're gonna find all the information there, but the best thing is contact all the people you can at each department, each school, so you have the best information for that moment.
Okay. I'm interested about, you mentioned that you worked, or that you're working, and other students work in many different jobs. What are some of the jobs that you see students doing, international students doing on campus or off campus?
Yeah, so our visa only allow us to work on campus. So if we had to work off campus, it has to be related to our field. So usually we only find jobs inside campus, on campus. So, but there are many kind of jobs, like work at the library, work as in some office with administrative things, helping sign, print stuff, jobs that require not that much of knowledge about that. Like the secretary of physics, he's studying law now. So he's a student of Catholic University, and he works for the physics department. So universities have all these kind of jobs, and usually many things in the universities are run by students, so they can all continue paying the university.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's a great vision for students to know that there are lots of possibilities and that universities support them. Is there any other advice you'd give to students overseas who are interested in studying here, just before we wrap up?
Well, I don't know. What I can say, probably you're gonna invest a lot of money paying air tickets, visa, and the first expenses you have here, university fees. But if you want it, go for it. United States is a great country that can offer you great opportunities, and this investment that you put in yourself will come back soon. So if even if it's too much money now, I think in 1 or 2 years you're going to have everything back and much more.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Luiz. Thank you for joining us today, Luiz. If you want to hear more from Luiz, he will be online in our chat room at educationusa.state.gov/interactive. He'll be available to answer your questions online throughout the rest of the program. Coming up next, our education and nonprofit experts, Elaine, Pawlik, and Gwen Thomas, will be joining us. They will go over everything you need to know about financing your education at any accredited U.S. college or university. Remember, if you have any questions or topics you want them to address, please ask them in our Education USA chat room or post your questions on Twitter using the hashtag EducationUSA. Before our next guest joins us, we would like to highlight some of the things we do here at Education USA and also spotlight our partner school for this presentation, the University of the District of Columbia. We'll be right back.
I've heard a lot of good things about UDC. Given the fact that I live more than 7,000 miles away from home, I felt like I'm a part of this big, friendly family. If you want high-quality education with affordable price, you should apply to UDC. The professors, the faculty, the students will give you just the right things that you need to accomplish your goals.
Hi, I'm Fred Boll. I represent Education USA at the U.S. Department of State here in Washington, D.C. With over 400 advising centers around the world, Education USA is the U.S. Department of State's official source for finding the right U.S. college or university for your studies. American universities and U.S. communities value international students, and they are sending a strong message of welcome through the You Are Welcome Here campaign. Whoever you are and wherever you're from, come join the more than 1 million international students currently studying in all 50 U.S. states. I encourage you to visit an Education USA advising center near you today. You can find us at educationusa.state.gov to learn more.
I did my research and I realized I wasn't really interested in spending a whole bunch of money for education. I have a lot of friends who are going to many different schools, and all of them are paying a whole bunch of money. And when I talk to them, their experience is kind of similar to mine. They're not getting anything that I'm not getting, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit more than what they're getting.
Welcome back. Here is a live view of our interactive nerve center. As you can see, Luiz is online in our Education USA chat room. He'll be online for the remainder of our program to answer your questions. I would now like to welcome Elaine Pawlik and Gwen Thomas. Elaine is an International Student Services Coordinator and Counselor at the University of the District of Columbia. She has worked in international education for the last 8 years. Gwen Thomas is an author, educator, and advocate. In 2010, she founded Fresh Perspectives Seminars, a nonprofit think tank that provides student seminars and parent workshops on a variety of topics, including college readiness, study abroad, and college financial literacy. Gwen is also a youth speaker with Education USA. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Gwen, let's start with you. What are the 5 tips that you have for international students who are planning to come to the U.S. to pursue their education?
Well, they're leveraging your college admission. International opportunities are available for students. When I speak of leveraging your admission, what are you bringing to the table as a student? Sometimes students forget it's just as important to interview the college as the college interviews you. You want to find out, they want to find out what value you bring. What is the student that is applying to our college, what value? One day they want to see that that student is going to be a great corporate citizen or make great contributions to the university. So I tell students, when you think about the universities you select, find out a little information about the alumni. Who are the most successful alumni that has attended that college? In addition, I talk to students about making sure that they understand the international FAFSA. Now, there's not necessarily an application that says international FAFSA, but it's a process, if you will. I tell students in my seminars, when you meet with your consular officer at your embassy, they want to know that you can finance the education. Do you have a sponsor? What forms of monies do you have to pay for your college education? So it's important that they have documents, supporting documents, not only for the embassy, but the university is going to ask them to submit the FAFSA form directly to the university, not to the government per se, the Department of Ed. And so in doing so, the university wants to find out the financial means of the student. The other things are, getting scholarship ready. A lot of students, of course, they want to find out what scholarships, how much will it take to fund my college education? Are there full scholarships available? So there's valuable lessons that need to be learned before they start the process. For example, are you a leader? What things have you done in your high school career that demonstrates that you've been a leader? Have you been involved in volunteerism? Have you participated in any innovative ideas? As a student today, have you created an app? Already you have young people that are tech savvy, and they're doing the work they're doing the work already in STEM. They're coding and things like that. So the universities want to know what kind of student, what value. So when you begin to get scholarship ready, these universities want to know, what value you bring. There's tons of scholarships that are available. There are athletic scholarships, and for example, if you're, have you participated in the Olympics? As a student, if you're an international student, you have to be registered with the NCAA as well. There's documents, of course, all that information has to be transformed to English, but it has to be sent and records as early going back as 9 years old if you're a student athlete. The NCAA is very, very stringent as it relates to that. Merit scholarships, have you had a successful ACT score? What kinds of things are you doing as far as volunteerism and leadership? So these are the kinds of things. It's not just based on academic for scholarships. There are tons of opportunities. Opportunities are available at not just universities, but private funders as well that are looking for what values. Are you already an environmentalist as a student? Are you looking to gain skills in the United States and go back to your country to make the environment more sustainable? These are the kinds of things that private funders and universities are looking for. In addition, there's tons of other scholarships, like I mentioned, leadership scholarships. Are you involved in creating a democracy in your country? So we can talk about that a little further, but there's tons of opportunities that are available. In addition, I'd like to make sure that I let students know that not only are there opportunities for scholarships, but there are opportunities for loans and other kind of financial aid. And I think my colleague Elaine is going to talk about that a little later.
That's fantastic, Gwen. Thank you. What advice would you give students to make sure they get the most value from studying in the U.S. And also prepare for the financial realities of life after college?
Well, today it's students have to think about getting a return on their investment. One of the things that's so crucial is, students just think in terms of, I want to pick a top school, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to Yale, but one of the things you want to make sure the cost of a college education is very expensive. I want them to really put their eye on the prize. What career do you really want? When you say that you want to be an attorney, for example, or you want to be a doctor, identify other people at that university who have been successful, who have charted the path, if you will, in neurosurgery, things of that nature. Sometimes students are vague as it relates to their career goals. They want to find out at the university, is this a research institution? Is there a professor here at the university that's doing the work that I want to do? You know, it's okay to reach out to the professor and say, I'm a student and I understand that, you know, you're studying the environment, you're studying water, and I'm from a country that we have a low water supply, or we have to change our infrastructure, or things like that. You might be surprised that university professor might have just been funded for research and may be looking for a student to be able to work in a teaching assistant or have a fellowship opportunity. So students have to be creative when it's time for them to think in terms of scholarship opportunities and other funding. And the more creative you can be, the better.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Elaine, can you tell us some of the things that you go over with international students when you work with them?
Sure, Fred. The first thing I do with international students who are inquiring about studying in the United States is to create a spreadsheet. And in this spreadsheet, you want to put down all the costs that you might have during your time in the United States. This way, you can have a spreadsheet, you can see exactly what you're going to be paying in the different costs for that. So if you don't want to download a spreadsheet yourself, edupass.org has one that you can download, and you can download several of them for all the different universities that you have and that you are applying for. So keep in mind that when you are applying for universities, that certain locations and regions and cities of the United States are going to be a lot more expensive than others. So for example, if you want to go to a place like New York City, great city, but very expensive to live in, that's going to be more expensive than, say, somewhere like Little Rock, Arkansas, or Omaha, Nebraska, both of which have great schools and great programs as well. And it's going to be a lot more or a lot less expensive. So that's something to look into when you are first applying for and to take into consideration. Now, another thing, once you have gotten all of your expenses in line and you know exactly what you're going to pay, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay those bills and things like that? And one of the most popular things for students to have is a sponsorship. They have a sponsor that sends them money or sends their institution money to pay for their tuition and fees, and also living expenses. So things like housing, travel, food, transportation, all these things. Now, when you are looking into a sponsor, typically it's a family member, but can also be a friend, a neighbor, coworker, colleague, really anyone. But when they're looking into sending money, they want to keep in mind exchange rates and possible transfer fees from bank to bank, especially with international transfers. They want to keep that in mind and maybe add that into the expenses that they accrue on their spreadsheet. So as Gwen was talking about before, another way to fund your education are scholarships and grants. Luiz, as before, he actually did a great job researching all these scholarships. And so that is another way for you or for a student to fund themselves here. Like Gwen said before, tons of opportunities out there for international students. There are specific international scholarships that you can ask. Typically speaking, it's the institutions that have that. So you want to ask directly to the institution if they have a specific scholarship for international students. Also merit-based, so this is going to be based off of your GPA and test scores and your performance in previous schools. And then need-based, that's not so popular, and it's not so, there aren't a lot of need-based scholarships, but they do have them out there. And again, you'll want to inquire directly to the school or the department for that. Now, when you're doing your research into these scholarships, you can go through the university, or you can go, as Gwen said before, through the private sector. And there are so many different websites out there for you to look. You can literally just go into Google or any search and just type in, scholarships for international students, and you will get tons of them. It is a little daunting, but if you put in the work, you will get that back, and you will definitely be able to get some kind of funding for that. Now, pay attention when you're looking at the scholarships. You want to pay attention into the disbursement of it. I think you had mentioned it before with Luiz. Is it a one-time scholarship, or does it happen every single semester? Do you get it every semester? Do you get it every year? So that is something that you want to take into consideration when you are accepting that scholarship. And also you want to be careful of some, scams that might be happening. Unfortunately, there are scams. So any organization that is asking you for your personal bank information, or asking you to give a sum of money, and in return they will guarantee that you get the scholarship, you definitely want to avoid that. That's not something that you want to look into. And another one is the government scholarships. Inquire in your own government about the different scholarships, because oftentimes they might have some kind of program for students to study abroad and in the United States. So you can definitely research that and inquire that. But you want to focus on whether or not that scholarship is in compliant with the visa that you are in. So that whatever visa that you come into the United States with, you want to definitely make sure that that scholarship or any other scholarship is in compliant with your visa regulations. So one of the other things, aside from the sponsorship or scholarship, I get a lot of questions about loans, education loans. Generally speaking, students think that loans are only for American students or permanent residents, but that's actually not true. There are educational loans out there for international students. You might have to dig a little bit deeper, but they do exist. And so if that is something that you are interested in, I do highly recommend that you go to the bank first in your own country to see if they have some kind of program like that. It might be a little bit easier for you to deal with your bank back home rather than a foreign bank in America. So you might want to go check that out first. And otherwise, if you don't have one, there are loan programs in the United States. We do have those, but typically you will have to have some kind of cosigner to that loan. Now, when you're looking at loans, you want to focus on things like your repayment plan and also your interest rates. So your repayment plan, how much money will you have to repay in like every single month, or is it every 6 months? Do I have to start paying right away, right when I graduate, or do they give me a little bit of leeway? These are the things that you want to look for. And then also the interest rates. Understand that the interest rates, the higher the interest rate, the more you will have to pay on a monthly basis. So that's keeping in mind too.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Thank you. And in terms of the resources, of course, EducationUSA advisors around the world are also prepared to, guide students to those resources that they have to look for, because it does sound like students have to do the work themselves, that they really need to, that both of you emphasize that there are lots of possibilities, but students really have to promote themselves, make it part of their application, and look for what's out there actively.
Right.
Once students understand the process and they, take on the challenge, it's easy. Because what happens is that once you get organized, there's typical supporting documents that you need for your scholarship essay. And you attack that scholarship essay. I tell students, for example, make sure you begin with answering the question. A lot of times they don't dig deep into making sure that they have a sound scholarship, that have clear points. And so once I have students who, when I hear back from them and say, Ms. Thomas, I won 10,000, I won 20,000, it's a wonderful feeling. But once they get organized, and I suggest you know, to plan out their time as much as possible. It's okay to practice scholarship writing. It's okay to plan out, if you put together a calendar and you know that that scholarship is out every year in the month of October and you're already planning 2 years out, you can find out the kinds of questions, for example, that foundation or that university answers. So that's important to get a jump start on it.
Elaine, just one follow-up question. Are there any avenues outside of scholarships and grants or loans that students you know, should look at, or is that essentially the main three?
No, I mean, those are the main three, but there are definitely other avenues that students can take. And one that I actually really like and I push for when students come and apply to my university is pathway programs. So if paying for tuition is an issue and your time here is an issue, a pathway program might be the answer for you. And so a pathway program would consist of you starting your education at a community college first, and then, which community colleges, by the way, are significantly cheaper in tuition and fees, and then transfer those credits into a 4-year degree program. So you're starting out in that 4-year degree program as a maybe late sophomore, early junior. So in the long run, it's going to save you a lot more money. And so that's a really great avenue to take for students who are a little bit worried about that bottom line cost.
And in most cases, you can get a $5,000 transfer scholarship.
Right, yeah, some institutions definitely have that, absolutely. So definitely, you know, and some other important tips that students should probably remember when they're starting this initial process, because it is a long one and it is a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. You want to plan accordingly, okay, to ensure that you meet those application deadlines, right? So each university is going to have an application deadline, and you definitely want to make sure that you are prepared and that you have everything done in advance, because the last thing you want to do is do everything last minute, because that's just too stressful for you. And then also keep in time, like with applying for that, keep in mind that admissions offices at universities have peak and busy times. Typically about a month before the start date, the admissions office is running around crazy trying to get everything done. So those emails that you might send to them, they might not be answered right away, but they will be answered. Another tip that I have for all the students is that do your homework, do your research. Like Gwen said, put in that effort, okay? Because you will find solutions as long as you do that. And you know, make sure that you exhaust all resources, whether it's EducationUSA or the different departments on the campus. Make sure that you exhaust them and do all the research and the homework. And I do want to make a quick little point about employment. Employment is a great opportunity for you to kind of build skills and build your resume, but understand that depending on the visa that you come into the United States with, employment necessarily isn't so easy to get. And on-campus employment is a great option for international students. However, you are also competing with domestic students for those positions as well, and there's a limited amount. So what I'm trying to get at is just don't make that the sole focus of your income, and don't count on employment as being something that you can pay all of your tuition with or your living expenses. It can be an added bonus, but not necessarily the sole source.
That sounds like excellent advice. Thank you very much, Elaine and Gwen. This is valuable information. It's now time to go to our viewing group gathered in Dhaka for a couple of questions. Dhaka, can I ask you, what is your first question?
Hi, this is Ahsan Rahmatullah, Education USA Bangladesh. So we have two questions, one from Nikita and one from Mr. Riyasat. So I'll pass the mic to them.
Should I stand up? Good evening, this is Riyasat from Dhaka. I'm in the second year of my A-levels now, high school, and I really want to ask about work study. You've already covered it a bit. So what I want to ask about is that what are the prospects for international students? And if I do get to do work study, how many hours can I put in there? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's an excellent question. So the question is, how many hours can a student put into work study, and is it really realistic for a student to do work study?
So work study is much like on-campus work. It's going to be on campus. It's going to be for the university, and depending upon your visa, you, especially for example, F1 student visas, you are only allowed to work 20 hours a week on campus.
On campus.
On campus. So it really isn't something that, I mean, it's definitely good to have that experience, but you don't want to count on that to pay for. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be enough to pay to fund your entire education and your experience in America. However, it is one of those opportunities that you can help to build your resume. So that it is, I mean, and also I want to point out that work study gets thrown out a lot, the word does. Federal work study is different than regular on-campus work. So federal work study is through the Department of Education, and unfortunately international students are not eligible for that. But on-campus employment, they definitely are, but I wouldn't bank on getting that, or I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that in paying for your education.
And I'd like to emphasize for a moment that students should, if they're attending a university, it's to their benefit to sign up for work study as soon as possible, because it's on a first come, first served basis. And I also want to remind our viewers that you know, scholarships, it's important to continually work with scholarships, because every year you've got to come up with that tuition. And oftentimes students believe that you only get scholarships going in. They don't understand that upperclassmen have the options to get scholarships. Sometimes they don't know that there's opportunities for master's and PhD candidates as well. So it's an ongoing process. Continue developing relationships as you matriculate through college.
So it is a little bit different for graduate students who might be doing things like actually teaching, or right, and that's part of the program, versus an undergrad who probably wouldn't have those opportunities, but who might be able to do 20 hours of on-campus work.
Sure. In the cafeteria, in the bookstore, you know, the student center, things like that. Graduate students, the ones that I see are typically the ones that are, they're more geared towards their degree program. They're doing a lot of research, or they're doing some teaching assistant positions, things like that. But yeah, I mean, there are opportunities, but like Gwen said, definitely the earlier you apply for those, the better off you will be.
So apply early and get organized.
Absolutely.
Second question from Dhaka, please.
Hello, I'm Nikita Rosa, and I recently graduated high school, and I'm currently in my gap year. So what I mainly wanted to ask was, what are the steps I can take in my gap year that will help me save money and study as cheaply as possible?
Excellent question. So the question is, the student is in a gap year before applying, and what are things she could do in a gap year to you know, take advantage of the gap year to further her application?
Well, I would say that's a great thing to do. Is that's a great time to go full time in working on scholarships. I mean, it's a lot of work, and everybody is not going to do the work. So if she takes the time to do the work and organize, she can begin to write those scholarships, at least formulate some ideas in her mind about they want to know, you know, typically, why have you selected this university? Why do you want to come, you know, to the United States to study in the United States? I mean, what value do you bring? So it gives them an opportunity to formulate those questions. And you know, I suggest students, you know, just gather as much information as you can about scholarships and just go down the list and apply.
So it's a great chance to get organized.
Yes.
Right, absolutely.
Is there anything in terms of substance, in terms of an application, not thinking about financial aid directly, but thinking about, you know, the many things you could do in a gap year that, you know, as an admissions officer you would, you know, think about?
Visiting the university if possible. I know that it's expensive, and, you know, some universities, and I don't know about international students, but some universities will give funding for students to come and visit. And that's something to at least explore. If I have a gap year, I certainly, if in my heart of hearts there was a university that I wanted to attend in the United States, and I would definitely invest in trying to find out if I can attend. Because sometimes sometimes students have a different viewpoint of what their university is.
Sure.
We want to make sure if they want to major in engineering and in a specific engineering, don't settle for a university that doesn't have the specific major. Go to the university that is going to have the specific work that you want to do, and then find out about the professors and what work they're doing and other alumni who are working in those fields. So it gives them an opportunity to do some research.
And also, volunteering or doing some kind of work within your major is a really good way during a gap year to make your application a lot more robust and a lot more pleasing to the admissions counselors. And then also, just doing some research and obviously with the, you have that plenty of time to do the scholarships. But if you're from a country that is not an English speaking country, I would highly suggest that you possibly take some online English courses, especially in academic writing. That is something that students struggle with when they first come into the United States. The way our curriculum is set up, it's a lot of research and it's a lot of writing and research papers and things like that. So you might want to get some tutoring or maybe take a couple classes or whatnot in that gap year, but then also volunteering and within your program and to get some experience so you can bring that experience back to the university.
So you link it to your application. It's
Absolutely.
kind of it's one message that's coming through.
Exactly.
Thank you. That's great advice. It's now time to take some questions from our online viewers. We have a question from the Binational Center in Mendoza in Argentina. Thank you. The question is, what should we do first to get a scholarship? Choose the college first and then look, or how should students think about that?
I kind of think they should probably do both at the same time because, when you're in high school, you're developing who you are. If you're already, I tell students when you get to high school, start participating in things that's close to what you want to do as possible. So, for example, if I want to go into anything surrounding technology, if there's a coding club that I can get involved in, if there's an opportunity for me to volunteer, these are the kind of things that build your resume. These are the kind of things that when you take classes that have rigor, the universities want to know, as well as the people who give out scholarships, they want to know how strong of a student you are. So, in the university, you want to make sure that you're pairing yourself with the right university. It's not always about the university that has the most, valued name, but sometimes the match is very significant. In the end, sometimes you have, you might be at MIT, you might compare yourself with MIT and another college, and in the end, when you look over the period of what you'll make when you graduate, you don't want to spend $200,000 and you make $30,000 as a salary in your job. You want to look in terms of how that university is going to help you tap into resources. Do they have relationships, for example, with certain corporations? So that gives you time to, number one, look at the university as far as, that college admission is going to allow me to leverage myself into a job. And then as far as a scholarship, is that going to also allow me to develop a relationship with that foundation?
Thank you. Elaine, anything you want to add?
To tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure you should do one before the other. It kind of depends on each student and where you are applying. Sometimes you can get all of your funding from scholarships from one particular university and then you're set. Sometimes universities don't have scholarships or grants or anything for you, so then you'll have to go through the private sector a little bit more. So it really just depends on each individual student and where they're applying to.
Okay, thanks. Our second question from our online viewers, are there general merit-based scholarships awarded by either the U.S. government to international students or from our home countries to study abroad? So merit-based scholarships that are coming from a government, either the U.S. government or especially home country governments.
Well, universities, I don't know about their home country because it depends on what country. Some countries will pay for their student to study abroad and pay a full scholarship. But certainly, by all means, universities will give merit scholarships. So I don't know about the scholarships as it relates to other than that.
It's not the government per se, but it's universities that have
exactly.
it.
It's not necessarily the government that will reach out to the students
Right.
for merit-based.
But one thing I do know is that Education USA advisors, certainly in your countries, will know about government scholarships that your governments may have, and are a very good source of information there.
Absolutely.
I would definitely direct students to advisors. So we have a question from Kigali, Rwanda. Greetings, thank you, nice to see you. Is there any financial support available to cover the costs of test prep and testing? So if students, of course, those are costs initially that students have to outlay. There's costs in paying for the SAT, TOEFL, as well as application costs.
Right.
Do any schools support those, or is that simply something that students have to bear up front?
I would say yes. I don't know of any online, because if they're in another country, it's going to have to be an online tool for them to use for the ACT prep. Are you aware of any at all?
No, and again, if there is, that might be a question to direct specifically to the university. But typically speaking, the cost accrued for the test or test prep, that lies with the student themselves. Now, the application might be a little bit different. You might be able to ask for an application fee waiver. But again, that's going to be, you're going to have to inquire with the admissions department directly to do that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm getting an information that we need to keep our answers brief, because apparently we have a lot of questions, which is great. So the next question from online, I'm interested in athletic scholarships. What do I need to do about securing one?
Well, I talked about that earlier. The first thing you need to do is get registered with the NCAA, and they will guide you from there. They have a whole litany of questions and guidelines and supporting documents they require.
NCAA, thank you, excellent. So from Dorothy in Poland, are the requirements for undergraduate programs the same for people that are currently in the last class of high school and for those who have already finished and who are already at university? So is there a difference between if you're a high school student and applying, or if you've already started university studies in your home country, but you're thinking of coming to the US to transfer, essentially?
There could be transfer scholarships that might apply to you, but generally speaking, there's no difference in it. If you're an international student coming to the United States for the first time to study, those scholarships will be available for you. Okay,
excellent, thanks. How do I calculate the cost of study in the United States? That's a hard one.
That is a hard one. What I would research, 100% research. Like I said before, download those spreadsheets and figure out the costs that you're going to have. Some of the costs that you are going to have to think of, not only tuition and the fees, which can be found online at any particular university website, but you're also going to have to keep in mind things like housing, on-campus housing versus off-campus. Is it cheaper? Is it more expensive? And then things like transportation, public transportation, food, travel. And what I would suggest for students who are inquiring about this, reach out to the university, see if you can get in touch with another international student at that university to get some advice and some information. How much do you pay for food a month? How much do you pay in costs and travel and transportation? That's a really good resource to have.
And does the Department of Education have a scorecard that can help for universities so that where students can look it up? I think that that students can check the U.S. Department of Education College scorecard for universities they're interested in, and that is also a resource, correct?
Right, absolutely.
And I'm an advocate to keep those costs down, so that's why you want to get scholarships.
Got it. So an online viewer would like to know if you have any special advice for married students. Elaine, anything that universities do for married students, or in terms of finances?
You know, in terms of finances, no. Dependent upon the visa that you come in with, if you're an F1 student visa, you have an F2 as your partner. Your spouse is going to be on an F2 visa. Now, they typically don't pay for the funding for that spouse, but you will have to have additional funding for that and be able to prove that you can support that spouse while you are in the United States. So keep that in mind too. But typically speaking, universities won't have that. Now, they do have housing, especially the graduate housing, might have single bedrooms or single room housing for married couples to come in. So that's something to inquire about. But typically speaking, the scholarships might not, support the spouses of the student.
So it's a factor that they have to put on their spreadsheet,
Absolutely,
right? So
100% a factor.
Okay, thank you. I know we have a lot of questions about how to find scholarships, and let me say that the first step should be for you to contact the Education USA Advising Center nearest you. Find center contact information online at educationusa.state.gov. That's the best way to find that information. So we now have a question from Marini. Can family members already living and working in the U.S. sponsor international students for study?
Absolutely. They absolutely can. As long as they have the funds to do that, they can definitely do that.
Okay.
Anyone can really do it. Family, friends can do it.
Okay, excellent. So there are lots of questions about different visa types for fields of study. And of course, students, anyone wanting to study has to apply for a student visa, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any specific guidance you'd give about the visa? We have done webinars specifically on visas, and so what I would probably direct students to do is to say, look at the webinars. One of our 5 steps is, of course, securing your visa, applying for your visa, and that students can get information online about online at the Education USA website. We have a question from Khalid, who's asking, what information can you share about scholarships for medical school and the requirements for applying? Gwen, is there...
Well, you need a lot of money for medical school. So, there are tons of universities who offer medical scholarships. In addition, there are private foundations as well. So, I tell students all the time, you're on the trajectory in your undergrad already if you're going to be a medical doctor. So, once you get into that track as far as working with the universities, they'll be able to share with you other scholarships. But the challenge is you want to do the work as early as possible, because once you get into your residency, you won't have as much time to spend on, sending in scholarships, but at least do the work beforehand and having a list of the scholarships you can apply for.
Got it. So look for medical ones specifically and make that part of the process.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Our next question, I have been admitted to a U.S. university but need additional funding support to cover the costs. What should I do? Are there fellowship or assistantship opportunities?
Did they say they were an undergrad or a master's program?
Didn't specify.
Well, I tell students you have to look everywhere for scholarships, everywhere. Whatever their interests are, find out if there's a specific interest they are in their departments, in private corporations who do the work that they want to do. I didn't get a chance to talk about the workforce, but companies are already looking for their students. In their human resource departments, they're already projecting, for their workforce for students in the next 4, 6, and 8 years. They're already letting corporations know, they're already letting universities know, and that the universities should be developing a relationship with the human resource departments. So sometimes there's money to get those students prepared, and even through an internship opportunity and scholarship opportunities.
Okay, so I see that there's another question about scholarships covering upfront costs. I think we've already addressed that, saying that there aren't really costs to cover fees for GMAT or testing. So let's go back to DACA for one final round of questions, or let's say one quick question from DACA.
Good evening. My name is Shakilur Rahman. Currently, I am doing a research on adolescence. I am interested in research fellowship. So my question is, how do I apply for research fellowship? Thank you.
So to apply for a research fellowship in social sciences, what is the best way to do this? I assume it's to reach out to the school itself.
Exactly. Reach out to the school, reach out to the different professors or the dean or the chair of that department, and they are also not only involved at the school, but then also in that field themselves. So they will know, that would be the best resource for them.
Okay, got it.
One thing I want to add, we live in a different generation now. We have young people that are blogging, they're doing research on their own. I want to encourage students to continue to write, continue to blog about the work that they want to do, and any innovations that they create. That can be very valuable as they go through, matriculate, and they have to start developing their dissertation. They can already do pre-work before that. and stay on that trajectory.
Thank you so much. Lots of advice and lots of food of thought for students. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. Gwen and Elaine, do you have some parting quick thoughts for our viewers? Gwen.
Well, I can, I'm available. I am a speaker with Education USA, and my book, The Parent Smart Guide to Sending Your Kids to College Without Going Broke, is available online.
Thanks. Elaine.
I would just encourage the students to apply for universities. Please don't let the cost of the university and your time here deter you from doing that. It is a great experience, and you are definitely welcome in this country, and you're welcome at these universities. So please don't let that deter you, and just start early.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time and your great advice for students. Thank you for joining us today, and of course a big thank you to Gwen and Elaine for being here to answer your questions, and to Luiz Fernando for your great advice and for helping head our chat room response team. Thank you to our viewing group joining us from Dhaka in Bangladesh as well. We also want to thank a few viewing groups gathered in Havana, Cuba, San Luis Potosi, Mexico, Education USA Mongolia, the Education USA American Corner in Astana, and the many other viewing groups around the world. If you still have questions, go to the nearest Education USA Advising Center in your country. On the web, please see educationusa.info/centers. You can find out more about studying in the US by visiting the Education USA website at www.educationusa.state.gov. There you can find information on the 5 steps to US study, locate an Education USA center in your country, one of 418 around the world, connect with us via social media, learn about both in-person and virtual upcoming events, research financial aid opportunities, and much more. Thank you, and please join us for future Education USA Interactive web chats. Goodbye from Washington.